Hello everybody, my name's Anthony Pfeffer and this is the Uptown Lockdown. Quentin is here, Ian is here.
Hello.
Hello. Gareth is here, and we'll be back after we've heard Duke Ellington.
God Almighty, God above, please look down and see my people through. Lordy, Lord of love, God Almighty, God above, please look down and see my people through. I believe the sun and moon will shine up in the sky when the day is gray. I know it, clouds passing by. He'll give peace and comfort to every troubled mind. Come Sunday, oh, come Sunday, that's the day. Often we'll feel weary, but He knows our every care. Go to Him in secret, He will
part 4, I think that was, of Duke Ellington's Black, Brown and Beige there, with Mahalia Jackson. I'll just turn that off because that's playing in my headphones there. Mahalia Jackson in 1950, whenever it was, 56, is it? 57?
58, I think.
58. Is it really that late? Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I should have looked that one up, shouldn't I? So welcome along, everybody. This is the Duke Ellington Society UK's... Oh, it's a good year, isn't it? It's always a good year when we have an Uptown lockdown, guys. So thanks so much for being here, Quentin, Ian and Gareth. So I found myself last week in Stockholm in Sweden for the Duke Ellington Society of Sweden's celebration of Ellington 125. A 1 and a bit day conference there at the, well, I'm going to say Estonia Centre, I think, just near Skala Teatern, or however that's pronounced. And that was a wonderful day meeting up with people, mainly Swedish people, lots of them there, but a few people from elsewhere, including from Britain. I think there were 2 of us, or 3 of us from Britain. Two British people, at least 2 British people there. A couple of Americans, 3 or 4 Americans. Yeah, it was good. But I'm not going to talk about that now. But a couple of days later, I found myself wandering around Sweden, and I found a couple of these nice 1950s Columbias. That one in VG Plus sort of condition, a good listening copy of that. Not really an archive copy, but still quite nice to add to the collection. And also found one of the reissue of the Liberian Suite and Harlem on the other side. That sounds really good, actually. I might play a track from that later if we have time. Gosh, welcome everybody. So we were chatting on the phone between us just over the last week or so about what we might discuss on an Uptown lockdown. And of course it's Duke Ellington's 125th anniversary of his birth last month, 29th of April, Monday last week. And also on the 24th of this month, May, the 50th anniversary of his death as well. So we might touch on some of the later escapades of Duke. But to start with, Ian, or Gareth, because we were just discussing other things that were happening around about the time that Duke Ellington began recording in earnest in 1924 in jazz, particularly in jazz recordings. Gareth, yes, you selected Cake Walking Babies. Well, we were discussing whether we were going to do Duke or Louis and Sidney Bechet first. But Louis and Sidney Bechet made it, didn't they?
We could do this one first, yeah. I mean, it just occurred to me that 1924 is the year of Duke's first recording, so that's a sort of centenary, sort of celebration, along with the other ones that you mentioned. And it's quite an important, obviously important year for Ellington, but it's an important year for jazz as well, because there's interesting things going on in the jazz world. We said that Rhapsody in Blue got its debut performance, I think, with Paul Whiteman. Armstrong had played with Fletcher Henderson, I think.
That's right. Yes.
Early in the year, and made some sort of quite what were considered to be like modern recordings, I think, and sort of quite advanced recordings with that band. Ellington had actually, I mean, he'd played with Sidney Bechet as well. I think was that late 23 and early 24. So I mean, he'd already sort of travelled through the band. It's easy to forget that he was a band member. Of course, unfortunately, nothing was ever recorded, was it? And nothing later on, because he sort of if he didn't record with some of these earlier stars at the beginning of his career, he often caught up with them, didn't he? Sort of like, Armstrong on a couple of occasions, and and Coleman Hawkins. But yeah, the first recording that I selected, you've got really lots of sort of different jazz going on here, because you've got even within Ellington's band itself, you've got this sort of like classical crossover going on. You've got the blues singers still popular and important. You've got the start of big bands. You've got the sort of the musicians that have travelled from Chicago, like Armstrong. And I don't know whether you could quite call it this, but it's almost like a bit of a nostalgia recording, because it's sort of going back to perhaps to New Orleans, where Armstrong and Sidney Bechet came from, perhaps. But it's a like enjoyable and fiery recording. I think there are two recordings. There's one from the end of 24, which was for Gene. Is that, how do you pronounce that?
I've always pronounced it Jeanette, but that may not be quite Jeanette. Yeah, I don't know exactly.
And then there's one, I think, which is a similar personnel but not quite the same, from early 25. So that doesn't quite fit into our 24, but it's near enough. It's about, I think it's on the 7th of January or something for OK as well. But yeah, there's not. I mean, I think it's not actually the first time that Armstrong and Bechet played together. I mean, I think they say they knew of each other in New Orleans, so you'd have thought they must have played together there, but obviously not recorded. But they've made a couple of recordings sort of before this. Like, I suppose Bechet had gone to Europe by this stage, and he'd sort of received some acclaim. So, and he was the older musician. And when you're in your sort of early 20s, how much older was he? 7 or 8 years. That can make quite a big difference, I suppose. So you've got, Bechet and Armstrong, and of course Bechet was, I think, by all accounts, was a very sort of competitive musician, and I think you hear that here. He's sort of playing to show that he's still boss, perhaps.
Shall we hear it?
By all means.
By all means. Well, by these means, let's see if this now works. Okay, then. Cakewalking Babies from Home. Eventually. Gareth.
Yeah, that was they recorded that under the title of the Red Onion. What was they? The Red Onion something or other.
We should do a rehearsal, shouldn't we? Red Onion Jazz Babies.
That was, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Red Onion Jazz.
Sorry, I'm not an expert. I couldn't tell you for certain, but definitely they did record.
Right, yeah.
They did record as the Red Onion Jazz Babies.
And the Red Onion apparently was a bar in New Orleans. Where,
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
No, I enjoy a red onion though. They're quite sweet, aren't they? They can burn because of the sugar content, but they are quite nice in a sauce, you know.
Yeah, I don't know if it was on the menu there, possibly, but.
Well, I mean, I just thought it would be almost contractually necessary. How could you have?
I think we should have an Ellington record from 1924.
Oh, Quentin's pushing us along there.
Actually,
so
there is one other link with Ellington, with the personnel there, I think, because Charlie Irvis, I think, is on trombone on that, and he's on some of those the early Ellington ones. So it's all sort of, so they're sort of mixing and matching a bit, you know, with each other at this point. And he didn't stay that long, did he? Sure. I mean, you know, what, year or 2 years before he moved on, I think. I think people say that he was important in pioneering the growl trombone that Nansen became famous for. But I don't think there's any recorded evidence actually of him playing it on, certainly not on Ellington records, which is a bit of a shame. I think, you know, that was probably, whether that was by design or it just happened that way, I'm not sure. But what else have we got lined up from 24 from Ellington? Has anybody else chosen something?
We've got this
Choo
Choo and Rainy Nights.
Choo Choo, Rainy Nights, and also Deacon Jazz.
Yeah, well, I suppose Deacon Jazz, and if you set that against Choo Choo and Rainy Nights, they're two sort of instrumental pieces, aren't they? Mm-hmm. And Deacon Jazz is more of a sort of like to my ears like a vaudeville thing. Yeah. So you right at the beginning, you've got some pieces that are sort of like more ambitious instrumentally that he's working towards, and one is a train piece, and he did lots of those kind of descriptive pieces, and also Rainy Nights. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of like an impressionistic, evocative title. I don't know if the music suggests that, but what else was he doing? Well, he did Misty Morning, didn't he? That not too long after that. So, and then later on, Dusk he was doing and stuff, wasn't he? And sort of descriptions of times of day.
Right, yes.
And yeah, I think another connection. I think, does Deacon Jazz have Alberta Hunter, who was also on one or both of the Cakewalking Babies, possibly? I might be.
Oh, hang on. It's Eva Taylor with the Cakewalkings, I think. And is it Alberta Prime?
Yeah, that was the first vocal one, wasn't it? Alberta Prime.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's just Joe Trent on the Deacon Jazz, I think.
Is it?
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
On that one, on Deacon Jazz, yes, definitely. I don't know who Joe Trent is, though. I have to be honest with you. Is he well known?
Was he? I thought, was he? Did he write some stuff?
He was a lyricist. I can't remember the the songs he put his name to. But yeah, I think he must have been a bit of a player across the genres, I think. And I only know his name from the couple of songs from that first session. And I think he died in Barcelona, of all places, in the mid-50s. But that's kind of as much as I know about him. Yeah, I agree, Gareth. They are almost like vaudeville, isn't it? And when Sonny Greer is vocalising as well. Yeah.
Yeah, he appears on sort of a few. I mean, in fact, actually, was even a bit later on. He was still cropping up, wasn't he? With with the off vocal, the off vocal thing. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Shall we play sort of segue, as it were, these two pieces, Deacon Jazz and then Rainy Nights.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it'd be interesting to contrast, actually.
And then we'll be back after that. Right, cross fingers this works. Let's have a go with it, shall we?
Guided by a deacon. All the customs here are guided by the deacon. Everything he does is right. He can do no wrong. So we're glad to follow him. He's got a strong song. Deacon Jazz, you'll find he has no winning way. And say, hey, Deacon Jazz, he's getting bold. Makes young and old feel gay. He's creepy, he'll chase your blues. He'll shake you and make you wear out your shoes. Oh, don't you fall, you've got to fall. He's got us all, old Deacon Jazz.
Ah, yes, the proper Scottish
Right, yeah.
spelling.
Is it?
That is Scottish, isn't
All
it?
the two eyes at the end, like
Harry Conley will understand.
aye.
Yes, he would.
So there we go. That was Rainy Nights, I think. Yes, pretty good. I guess. I mean, would you say? I mean, I'm just looking at the information here. So, according to this, there are 2 sessions: Alberta Prime with Joe Trent and Duke Ellington, and then the Washingtonians there on blue disc with Rainy Nights, and from the same session probably with a consecutive matrix number. We played it first. Joe Trent and the DCNS. The Deacons? The Deacons?
Yeah, I guess named after the record, I presume.
The
or
Deacons.
the song.
Deacons. There we are.
Yeah.
I've always thought of it as Dukans, but anyway, there we go.
Huh?
So,
DCNs.
DCNs. Oh, so literally from the District of Columbia. Nothing to do with Deacon at all then. I'd never thought of that.
Oh.
Is that how it
Is
is?
that's right, is it? I hadn't thought that.
No.
No,
I don't know, but it chimes with Washington.
Wow,
Yes,
there
it
we go.
does.
Recorded in New York City, you see, so it wasn't local there. They were up from the district. Good grief. Wow. Talk about mind blowing. It's worth tuning into the Uptown Lockdown, isn't it? So it's DC, but then an apostrophe and then NS. Wow. Fascinating. Okay. All right. So we've got Choo Choo here as well. We could play that. Shall we play that? Or shall we move on?
Only if you play Sensation as well.
Oh, Sensation. Right. Let's play. I tell you what. Why don't we play Choo Choo and then play Sensation? Segue from that. Now, hang on. If I press this button, hopefully. And then there we go.
Thank you.
Quentin.
Yeah, Bex with the Wolverines, Wolverines.
Haha, no, not the
Um,
Washingtonians.
Not exactly my favourite era of Bex, to be honest. I mean, the accompanying band not very good, you could argue.
Ah,
Certainly not as good as the players he was with a few years later in 1927. But you can say the same thing for Duke, of course. It was 1924.
definitely. I mean,
Um,
these 1924 things in general, I mean, there are some really good things, of course, in jazz around then. But, yeah, would you say that better things were to come in general terms?
Definitely, certainly in terms of instrumental technique.
Hmm.
We need
I
the
know.
likes of Johnny Hodges to come along and
Oh,
kick everybody out the arse.
so who was, who wrote Sensation then? Sensation Rag? Was that the,
No idea. It's a ragtime number, obviously.
yeah,
So,
somebody wrote it, I'm sure. Sorry. Again, we'll do a take 2 of this. No, this is the take. This is the only take. This is the master take, isn't it? We're cutting directed disc, and it doesn't matter. Hopefully, we're actually
it's
live.
still often played by trad bands, and I have to say they usually play it a lot better than Wolverines, with the exception, of course, of Bix on cornet, who's
Very
just
true.
gorgeous.
Well, yeah, Sensation Rag. So, Original Dixieland Jazz Band. It is one of those. I wanted to say it, but I wasn't totally certain. And then it says here. Let's just have a quick look here. Oh my gosh, I wish I was an expert on this. So there are 2 Sensation Rags. Let's not worry about it. Eddie Edwards?
No.
Eddie Edwards is credited on the Victor label here, the original
Let's not worry about it.
recording. But that was Bix Beiderbecke with the Wolverines, or as part of the Wolverines in 1924 there. Oh gosh. So yes, we were very pleased. I mean, we're 7 years or so into jazz record recording by this point. So pleased to have these literally records of what was going on, at least to some extent.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Oh,
it is amazing how the history of jazz
nearly
coincides with recorded music. It's
nearly
great.
100 years.
Very fortunate.
Yes, we're fortunate we don't sort of. Well, I suppose, I mean, arguably, people weren't bothering for the first probably 30 years or so of recorded sound to record jazz, I guess. So it took more or less a generation or so after recording became fairly commonplace for anything that really could be described as jazz. People will point to earlier recordings and say they're a bit jazzy, jazz influenced things, going back probably to 1900 or so, but...
I wonder
Well, you
how
mentioned ragtime, obviously. There are ragtime records.
how the musicians perceived what they were doing in the recording studio, and it was all so new in some ways, I suppose. And when we were talking about Charlie Irvis before, there is no recording of him with Ellington that I understand does justice to him as a musician. And I'm sure that must be so for quite a number of the kind of the jazz records. They're like ancient holy texts or something, aren't they? But the extent to which they represent what was happening or the choices they made about what they were going to record or how they recorded it, I suppose we'll never know, or I wouldn't know where to look.
No,
I
indeed.
think that's the thing that does count against these recordings that are so early is the sound quality, isn't it? Because there's no. When does electronic
So, yeah, I was
recording not?
they were acoustic. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
Yeah.
apart from 1 or 2 people that may have been recording a bit earlier electrically, you've got... hang on 1 second, I just thought of a track that we could actually play here. Oh, sorry. Let's just... Because the Western Electric process really went into effect in 1925. So some of the earlier recordings seem to have some electric... People debate about this. Are some of the early things, as early as January 25 on Columbia, are they electric recordings? They're very good recordings. And so on Columbia, it was licensed. Western Electric licensed their process to Columbia and also to Victor Records in America, and which is useful, and but not to OK or Brunswick, and so OK was taken over by Columbia a bit later on, and Brunswick went their own way in terms of electric recording. So the way you can tell is there's a W stamped in a circle. So that when you see a matrix number and it's WC, for example, C for Columbia in New York, I think, and W meaning Western Electric, meaning that a royalty is being paid on that recording. So you get a W, a big W, and on Victor, a VE, so, in a circlet, meaning Victor Electric. And again, the same thing. So those recordings are licensed as being electric. But you know what? I mean, some labels, Cameo and Banner and whatever, there are acoustic recordings as late as 28, 29, but some of them may not be. There's a suspicion, I think, that sometimes the record companies were quite happy to use the process without necessarily always paying that royalty or whatever the exact arrangement was. But in any case, the recordings were registered in that way as being electric from 25 onwards.
But apart from the musical quality of what he was writing early on in this sort of electric stage, the recordings are of good quality as well, aren't they? They actually, you can sort of pick up the bass on them, and in a way you can't with other bands necessarily.
So that Rainy Nights and Tutu, that session Blue Disc, they're pretty good recordings, aren't they, for the time? But although recorded apparently at the same session, there doesn't seem to be such a good copy of Deacon Jazz around, because I've never, not really an expert on this, but I've never heard a really good copy of that. There are various transfers around. They're rare records, these, of course. I don't have any. But there are various transfers of Rainy Nights and Choo Choo and one or two others from that period, and they do vary a little bit. I was just going to intercede because you mentioned electric recording there. I have a feeling that this 1924 recording, which I've just grabbed from the internet, so I'm not sure about the sound quality. This is Tomcat Blues, Jelly Roll Morton and King Oliver recording together in 1924. And thought about this a couple of weeks ago when we were discussing it, and then I completely forgot about it. So I've just literally grabbed this from the great, ether out there. So I thought we'd just have a quick play of this and see, because I have a feeling this may be claimed as being an early electric recording. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the sound's that good, of course, but just as on a technical note. Let's have a go with it.
We're on a par with GB News then, aren't we, in terms of an audience? So
Oh, yes.
that's
Welcome
something.
to our viewer out there. Thank you so much. Of course, everybody can tune in later, can't they, at any time for the Now to the Rest of Humanity, and catch up with us. So there we go. That was Tomcat Blues, although Whining Boy Blues, maybe, by Jelly Roll Morton and King Oliver in 1924. Sorry, preparation, you know, it makes for everything. I was just wondering if we should play something. You mentioned Fletcher Henderson earlier, just if we should play something with Louis Armstrong, again from 1924. With the Fletcher Henderson band, because the earlier Fletcher Henderson band is kind of like a dance orchestra. It's not terrible. I mean, I slander with faint praise there, and then it becomes somewhat more, you know, jazzy around the time that Louis joins. Coincidentally, is that a fair comment? Do you think on the early Fletcher Henderson?
Definitely. Definitely, the records he made with Fletcher Henderson are great.
So here's a random one of those. I'll just see if we're actually... Are we still on? Yes, we are. There we go. Great. Shanghai Shuffle. Fletcher Henderson, probably 1924. And Quentin there is looking something up.
I can't find it though.
Oh, okay. So we'll come back to that or not. Oh my gosh! Wow. So just we'll skip forward now to about 1958 again. I thought just to intersect something I always enjoy. We talked about, or it was mentioned about Duke's tone parallels. That was a term that was used, wasn't it? So you mentioned things like dusk, and what was that other one? The Misty Morning. Yes,
Misty Morning
from 28 or so, I guess, ish, whenever. So one of the motifs that Duke has in his work over the whole almost 50 years, I suppose, maybe not over all of it, but over much of it, is his affinity with the train. And so we heard Choo Choo there. Is that a train song? I guess it could be.
Yeah.
From late 24, sometime around about November 24, it says here. And here's one from this sampler for stereo on Columbia Records. There we go, the Columbia LP there. Stereo Fidelity. I don't know that I'd call this, I have to be absolutely honest, I call it a hi-fi demonstration record, but it's certainly a stereo demonstration record, and is valuable in those terms. Let's hear Duke's contribution, track 360. Right, there we go. From Listening in Depth, a compilation of things that Columbia Records put out around about 58 to celebrate the beginning of the stereo revolution there. And one of the things that they included in this, which is quite fun, which I quite enjoy, is a little flip book which demonstrates how the 45-45 stereo system, there were before that competing ideas for how to get stereo onto a record, including two completely separate mono tracks that had to be played in synchronicity with each other. And there was also some idea of cutting one channel laterally and one channel vertically, which didn't work. So what they settled on is cutting the mono information laterally and the stereo difference information vertically, which works out as the left channel cut at 45 degrees to the perpendicular towards the record label, and the right channel cut at 45 degrees the other way, so 90 degrees apart. And they produced this little booklet here to demonstrate how the groove works. It goes down, it goes up, but it goes left and right as well. So the height of the groove varies, and the information is compatible with mono, so you can play records back if you only have mono, although you still, because of the different height, you do have to have some vertical compliance, otherwise things go bad. But anyway, there we go, Columbia and their stereo LP. One of these records actually that I got in sunny Stockholm, the weather was stunning after all the snow and ice the week before. I came back to a rather miserable and grey England, but one of these records had a, if I can find it here, oh, so many records. Oh yes, I just enjoy these. Not that one, hang on. This one, here we are. I think this is the one for the for that Mahalia Jackson Duke Ellington thing. They're celebrating the 10 years of Columbia's LP there, which was launched, I guess I would say in 47 with the 10-inch LPs, but I'm not an expert. So there we go. Their nice LP logo there. 10-year celebration of the LP. Just to fit in with our
Can't beat a good inner saloon.
No, indeed, no. So there we go. So there's always a debate, isn't there? I mean, we've heard Duke's train, a couple of examples there of his train sessions, but we always enjoy a good debate about who's playing on these, particularly the earlier records, or even some of the later ones. So Ian's brought an example along of that. Ian, tell us about that.
Well, it's a recording. There is a specific date for this, the 21st of November, 1924. So the same month as Duke's first half dozen tracks. And it's a singer called Josie Miles, who I only know of looking at the other recordings that Bubba Miley was making in the late 20s. But there's a little bit of a debate about whether it's Bubba Miley or somebody I'd never heard of before I started researching, called Johnny Dunn, who was apparently the best cornet and trumpet player in New York till Armstrong arrived. So perhaps our someone in the audience, I don't know what the chances are on average, might know whether this is Bubba Miley or not, but it's a track called Mad Mama Blues. I'm by no means I'm not an Ellington expert at all, but certainly not the early years, and not much sense of the context either. And you sort of look at those first half dozen tracks or so that Ellington recorded, and what was he thinking of? Where was he hoping these were going to land? That there's such a variety of them, and sometimes only by looking at the other kinds of records at the time can you perhaps hazard a guess. So this track is called Mad Mama Blues, and she sings charmingly about rivers of blood running down the streets, and she reaches at the end for a Winchester, and it sounds vaguely like St. Louis Blues, and Johnny Dunn was a discovery by W.C. Handy. So you think when you put the blues and vaudeville and entertainment generally into the mix, maybe that explains some of the choices of those early tunes that Duke recorded, and when he fancied himself as a songwriter rather than a band leader. So it's a most bizarre track, violent in the extreme, in a kind of Laurel and Hardy way, maybe. Mad Mama Blues, and Josie Miles, who I stopped making records a year later. Perhaps this would explain why. And like one or two other musicians at the time, became very religious subsequently. Perished in a car crash in 1953, but she made a few records prior to this. So whether it's Bubba Miley or not, I don't know. It interests me to wonder if he was in the studio the same month he was doing Choo Choo and Rainy Nights. But it's to modern ears quite a bizarre record.
Wanna set the world on fire. That is my one mad desire. I'm a devil in disguise. Got murder in my eyes. Now I could see blood running through the street. Now I could see blood running through the street. Could see everybody laying dead right at my feet. Some man invented war. Sure is my friend. Some man invented war. Sure is my friend. Don't believe that I'm thinking. Just look what a hole I am Give me gunpowder, give me dynamite. Give me gunpowder, give me dynamite. Yes, I'd wreck the city, wanna blow it up tonight. I took my big Winchester down off the shelf. I took my big Winchester down off the shelf. When I get through shooting, there won't be nobody left.
Well, thank you, Ian, for bringing that along.
Curio.
So if it's not Bubba Miley, then
Johnny Dunn is
It's
the
Johnny
other
Dunn.
suspect.
so Johnny, yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah, have a think about that. Well, so that I think that is that now. So we've done some selections from 24. By no means everything. Bessie Smith had recorded already, and obviously there were earlier things that were still carrying on, original Memphis 5 and so on. But Quentin, you mentioned that that we have a just in general terms a bit of an anniversary that we could touch on much later. Again, just jumping back to much later, Duke.
Yeah, I mean, something I brought along is from 1964,
Right.
by which time recording was much better. I mean, I think it was probably at its good as it ever got for LPs anyway. And this is from Duke Ellington when he was on Reprise, and he recorded in Chicago. I don't know what studio it was, but it's a really good sound on this record, which features the great Harry Carney, but it's from the Mary Poppins LP, which many people probably never listened. But it's in fact a great number, as good as Harry Carney ever played.
Oh, there we go. From mono, from a mono copy. I believe it's a mono copy of this. Duke Ellington plays with the original motion picture score, Walt Disney's Mary Poppins, there on Reprise.
A great record.
Great record, yes, really nice.
Underrated.
Well worth having a couple of spins of that every so often. A few crackles on that particular copy. Let's not worry about it. Hopefully it played through all the way. Oh my gosh. Okay, so where are we going now, guys? I mean, we could hear more from that album.
You said you were going to play us out or something.
Oh yes, we've got at the end. I was really torn actually. Quentin's got a copy of that just behind him. Everybody should have, of course. Blue light here. Should we mention the society at all for our listener?
Why not?
So we are the Duke Ellington Society UK, and one of the things that we do, apart from UL, that's two of the things that we do, but that's actually basically what we do, is produce a magazine, journal, a newsletter, entitled Blue Light, don't we, Gareth?
We
Do you,
do,
do, you
yeah.
do you happen to have a copy? Do you happen to have a copy to hand there?
Well, I am. Now, you're very privileged
Oh.
because I can give you a sneak preview of the front, the next edition. That's the front. I doesn't spoil it for
fantastic
anybody.
spoiler. Great.
No, it's fun. Cool.
Super.
Yeah, and that should be with subscribers in the next 2 weeks. And it's got some, it's an interesting article. It was an interview with Mercer Ellington from the 70s. Something on Duke's mother. The time that he met Anthony Burgess on a plane.
Well, as you do.
Wow.
In North America. So, yeah, there's lots of good stuff in there as usual.
Wow. Well, as usual.
That's Anthony Burgess, the musician.
In fact, he described himself as a musician, Anthony Burgess. Yeah, he did, primarily.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
are there two Anthony Burgesses?
Just one.
Like there were two
one,
sensation.
but he had many personalities.
Two sensation rags. Wow, goodness me. Well, I don't know. Honestly, I really have no idea. I mean, extraordinary things that happen.
And it's still only £25 to join, isn't it?
Oh, well, I was just going to lead you in there. I was going to say, and Gareth, how might people who are not become subscribers to Blue Light and indeed our society in general? So they would, for example...
The easiest way, I think, would be going to the DESUK website, DESUK, and go on there. There'll be a link.
Do I have a... Hang on, do I have a card?
Payment, I think.
Do I have a card for our web address on there? Well, let's just try this. I'm not sure how sensible this is. Well, let's give it a go. Right, there's our web address, dukeellington.org.uk. Wow, goodness me. I wasn't sure that was going to work.
The other thing we should mention, Anthony, is the AGM, isn't it?
Yes, I was just going to mention. So one of
the other listener.
Yes, so there are three. If you happen to be a listener within striking distance of London, at the Model Railway Society, I believe it's the Model Railway Society, which is on. Is it on Calshot Street? This is from memory now. Just off Pentonville Road, which isn't anything like as seedy as it used to be, is it, Quentin?
No, it isn't.
Up there around King's Cross area, St Pancras. Turn up and enjoy an afternoon with us all, whether you're a member or not. We accept anybody. Midday, Model Railway Society on Saturday, the 1st of June 2024. I'll put that in just in case people...
Also, go for the building, which apparently belongs to the Model Rail Society.
Oh, extraordinary.
Must be worth millions.
Wow.
Live music from Frank Griffith, I think.
Yeah.
So a video show from Gareth Evans. So yes, definitely worth attending up for the princely admission fee. For the princely admission fee of £0 there, that would be great. No, lovely to see anybody who happens to be in London. Yes.
Did we say from 12? Is it? Did we say?
So from 12. Well, we're going to be there at 12:30 for members of the public and of course our own members. So we've got a business meeting. If you're not a member, obviously you can join on the day, but if you're not a member, don't bother about that. But turn up around about 2:30 or something for the rest of what's going on there, and we'll see. It's been a frustrating time for AGMs. We had to cancel last year because of a rail strike, so we're crossing fingers that there won't be one. It's looking quite good already, isn't it? It's not looking too bad for the 1st of June at the moment. So hopefully we'll all be there in person. Ian, are you coming?
Well, I'll certainly consider
brilliant.
it. Yes, give it some thought.
Super stuff. Yes, Ian was on the on the committee and is emeritus a good term? Do you think he should?
I don't know.
I don't know. Emeritus.
Actually, I've not paid my membership yet this year.
Oh well, I'm so
completely
I'm so
fraudulent.
I'm so sorry.
I must do that in the next 2 weeks. I don't want to miss Blue Light.
No, so great stuff, Gareth. Yes, Gareth, our editor of Blue Light. There, And yeah, so anyway, which is our journal, of course, as well as the title of that compilation album that came out in the late 50s, sometime in the 50s. Not sure on these dates really. And so there we are. Yes. So I don't know. I was just thinking when we were chatting earlier. We talked about we've touched on the whole anniversary of these Duke recordings. There may be some things, there were listed things from 1923 that don't exist, some test recordings that were made, but apart from that, as far as we know, 1924 for the start of Duke Ellington's recorded career. And in chatting about anniversaries, well, that was not next week, a couple of weeks' time, it's the 50th anniversary of Duke's passing there. He died, I believe, of a cancer probably related to smoking. Is that right?
Yeah.
And and of course, spanning those 125 years of Duke till now. First 125 years. We'll see how the second 125 years go. But Duke was still, in those last years, we were talking about albums that he recorded in the early 1970s, Ian, weren't we? And in particular, the two recordings that were made for Pablo. This one's for Blanton, which I can't find. Great album, and Duke's Big Four. Hold that up there. Duke's Big Four.
Yes, right.
And one of the things that's of interest at the moment, I hope I've got this right, this is all from memory, just recently it was announced by Analog Productions and Chad Kassam over in Salina, Kansas there. He's putting out a new series of LP reissues of Pablo records, including those two Duke Ellington ones, all analog, new copies being pressed, which I always think is a nice thing, because although one can find good copies of any of these records, and particularly the Pablo ones, compared with other records that he's reissued over there all the day, Analog Productions have been involved with reissuing the Pablo ones, perhaps not the rarest, overall obviously being quite late. Norman Grantz's effort in the 1970s there. But still really valuable to have a good number of new copies being made, at least I think so. So let me just go back here, get rid of that particular card there. And I thought we'd play a couple of tracks from this, if that's okay, gentlemen. Let's just see if I can just click on that one, because this is stereo. Give it a whirl. I wish I had the second camera so you could see over here, but you just have to imagine a record spinning. So one of the things, it's just funny, I just in my head, when we were talking the other day, I was thinking of Johnny Hodges. And so one of the pieces that they play on this record is Ready to a Kiss. It is the last track on side one. I think it's side one. Not quite a DJ, I've only got one, well, I've got two turntables, so I've only got one hooked up. So just queuing these tracks. Yeah. Oh yes, there we go. So it just starts with Joe Pass guitar there. All right, more or less got that. There. And so one of the marks of Pablo records is the sound quality. It's very full range. It's quite powerful in general. Don't really hold back particularly. So that's, an intimation of, in the modern style of recording, and not to in any way disagree with Quentin there about there being something of a peak in the 60s. But the sound quality on, just the sound overall on Pablo is pretty good, pretty in your ear, I mean, what happened, just to mention about this, is of course that LP sound got considerably worse during the 60s because of multi-track recording and the mix down. They put more microphones in, they recorded separately, they mixed, and this doesn't apply necessarily always to jazz particularly, but it's worth saying that a lot of jazz records from even the late 50s, when they were recorded for stereo, were recorded as 3-track in America, and they were never cut, or rarely cut, when I say rarely, from the 3-track tape. They were cut from a mixed down 2-track tape. So even when they were recording to more tracks later on and then mixing, you would still be getting the a second generation tape being used. I mean, this is an interesting case, just to ramble, but when it came to putting this album on CD in the I just happened to have when this came onto CD, I don't know, there may have been an issue. I think there was an issue on the continent earlier, but about 95 or so. Who was it? Was it Owen Keep News who produced the CD reissue of that? It was remixed. I think there's a note in the CD, in the CD notes saying, "Oh, the original, stereo mix down master of this is faulty in some way, and so we remixed it from the multi-track tape." My opinion is that CD doesn't sound half as good as an original LP. I don't think that is an original LP, but anyway. So sound on LPs is honestly, it's very rarely as direct as a nice direct cut 78. So, but anyway,
I think it is very good on that Freeze era Ellington.
Yes, sorry, which one?
Well, for example, the Mary Poppins.
Oh yes. Right. So this is what is this? When is this? Is this we were talking about this, Ian? Is it January?
1964.
Is it January? No. Sorry, the Pablo.
The Pablo. I think it was January 73.
January 73.
Oh, is it right?
Yes. So there are recordings up to end of 70, official recordings, aren't there, by Duke? Yes. In particular, he came over to Britain, recorded the Third Sacred concert, then went to the continent, I think, and then came back and recorded at Eastbourne.
Eastbourne.
Yes,
actually,
right at the end of the year.
Which I think he recorded some things like Tiger Rag, which were like going back to very early jazz.
I wonder what was on his mind there.
Yeah, well, I wonder.
Those Money Johnson numbers, weren't there? Where Armstrong take off.
Off and off. That's right. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so yes, let's hear Prelude to a Kiss here from hang on, this Pablo album. So Joe Pass guitar, Ray Brown bass, Lou Belson drums, and Duke Ellington piano. Press this button and then press this button. from Duke's Big Four, Prelude to a Kiss, there by Duke Ellington. And there's a couple of other people listed on the credits. Would that be for the lyric, I guess?
Yes.
Yes. There we go. And published by the American Academy of Music, it says here, on this 1973 Pablo record. Soon, if not immediately, to be available again in an all-analogue reissue. And one of Duke's last records there. So a pretty full, nearly but not quite, 50-year career, a career on record that spans 50 calendar years. From 1924 to 1973. I was just looking at this again and just seeing it. It doesn't say Columbia Records on it. We just think they'd put their branding on it, but it looks like other copies of that demonstration record. One of the very first stereo LPs, allegedly, come with it too. So definitely, if you look at a copy of Listening in Depth, by the way, slightly misnamed in my view, because to me, if anything, unless stereo's done really well with proper stereo pair of microphones, the depth is actually reduced compared with mono. The width is increased. It should probably be called Listening in Wet. Don't you agree, Quentin?
I absolutely agree. 100%.
So to me, the front
Mono rules.
So the front to back depth is almost always superior in mono. As I say, unless the stereo is real stereo, a lot of stereo, almost all stereo is not stereo, it's panned mono with a little bit of reverb added to it. So stereo meaning where you've got two microphones actually recording the same source, at least two, maybe more, but at least two. So there are lots of genuine stereo records, but a lot of stereo records, including most of Duke's, are really just panned mono, pretty much anyway. Okay, so that was from this album. I thought we'd go out, so thank you if you have been, as always. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening, either live or in the future. I'm just going to cue up this, and we'll go out with a slightly faster, slightly more upbeat recording from the same session, Duke's Big Four, there in January 73. So my thanks to everybody who's here. Quentin in London. Yes, Anthony not in London. Not in Stockholm any longer either. Ian Bradley and Gareth Evans. Somewhere, wherever they are. Not together. So we'll be back at some point, won't we, guys? We'll do another UL at some point. But yeah, it's really good just to get back into it a little bit. I'll be honest, I'm a little rusty here, but as I said,
Well, I think you've done a great job, Anthony.
Well, that's very kind of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Send money.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you so much. So, dates. Join the society and get the Gareth Evans edited Blue Light. You get all of them for this year, I think, if the back end functions properly. I think that's the deal, isn't it? If you join mid-year, yes. And
I think so.
I think so, yes. And see us in person on the 1st of June at our AGM in London. Details on our website, dukeellington.org.uk. So with that, let's finish now with, and I hope I queued this up correctly, Cottontail.